Serve straight ahead past Schumacher, set in the middle. Schmeck out of bounds. We're done. Huskers win. Golly, grandkids. Nebraska sweeps Wisconsin on the road, no less.
And for the first time in 41 years, Nebraska knocks off the top-ranked team in the country, and they are storming the floor. They are storming the floor. They are storming the floor. Love it. Sign your name, Fred Hoiberg. There's your signature win.
Line drive towards second. Caden Grumbaugh there. He squeezes the line drive. And on a night filled with emotion, honoring our leader, Greg Sharp, with his eyes on the diamond and his hands on our shoulders, Nebraska takes down 16th ranked Vanderbilt 6-4. Sharpie, that one is for you.
Now, here's Tom Stevens and Mike Melby on 1499.3 KLIN.
The winning run. This ball's turned on into right field. This one's got a shot. Case Sanderson walks it off. Nebraska wins it on a 3-run bomb by Case Sanderson. And the Huskers win the series.
4th straight series win for Nebraska. Unfortunately, they couldn't get the sweep again as they fall today 3-1 to Michigan at Haymarket Park. But Nebraska at 500 for the year. They had gone over 500, then they lose today, but they have one final series in West Lafayette versus Purdue next weekend. And then it's the Big Ten tournament May 20th through the 25th. This is one of our final 2 shows, Mike Melby. You are on the pit crew at Eagle Raceway, so you've got a lot of racing to do this summer.
Yep.
And we've got things going on, so we're going to shut it down for a couple of months and then come back the 1st of August, get ready for Nebraska football.
Yep. Yeah, we had a fun night at Eagle last night. We went 9th to 2nd in 3 laps and then got punted by a track champion. That,
was there a fight? No fights?
It was the first time we've ever had an issue. So there was not with this particular individual. If there is a second, I have no promises on what will happen.
What's racing? I mean, is there a Ricky Bobby type out there that I don't know anything
like an absolute egotistical
jerk.
Yeah.
I mean,
some call
it's
him,
like any other sport.
Most call him Gilligan, but
all right.
Yeah, you've got. I'll be honest with you. Ty Jensen, I want to say young man. He's in his 40s now. I still feel like he's the 10-year-old kid that
he took over for his dad, right?
He didn't take over. He started driving his own stuff.
Oh, he drives his own. Okay,
yeah.
He drives his own car.
But he's a guy that is the least assuming, most just nicest human being ever. And there's times you want him to get pissed, so he'll go drive harder and all that. And he spun himself out in the he had a little. Him and Jason Danley got together, and he spun out. And he was so mad, and he came flying back in like 6 laps and got a transfer spot and all that. And we got into the A. But yeah, it was a rough night. It's not what you expect from a guy who, is a former track champion and all that. But I guess racing things happen. Tig said he watched it back. He may have jabbed the brakes a little bit. It could have been avoided, but at the same time, it was.
You said it was like $3,500. It's going to cost you. Get this car back ready.
Yeah, it's going to take a couple.
Now,
of bucks,
can you get the car? That same car ready again?
Yeah, the frame wasn't hurt. We had to replace the front axle and rear torsion arm just to be able to get the car into the trailer because it was literally sitting on the frame, even with the axles in the car when the tow truck dropped it off. It's pretty messed up, but the frame's fine. Just pieces and parts, but pieces and parts cost money, and I'd love to send the bill to the gentleman that did it, but who knows? Maybe his medical bill will be about the same cost if it happens again. So,
Mike Melby was the track announcer at Eagle Raceway for years and years and years with Rick Swigert, who's now Rick Allen.
Yep.
And calling NASCAR.
Yep.
Is it still the Truck Series that he calls? Or
no, he's been with the Cup Series for almost a decade now.
All right. So he's a big shot on the NASCAR Series.
Yep.
And you're a big shot in the crew and on this show.
Not at all.
Of course, former voice of Lincoln Stars hockey as well. We've got a big show tonight. Connor Happer of 1620 The Zone and the Connor Happer Show. He's also the co-host of Locked On Nebraska, the podcast with Mitch Sherman. Really good podcast. We'll talk some Husker football, little Creighton baseball. He has actually the play-by-play guy along with John Bishop. They trade off. He does a little color. He does a little play-by-play. He's the PA announcer for Creighton basketball as well. Evan Bland of the Omaha World Herald will be with us in hour number 2 to talk Husker baseball. And it looks like Nebraska's getting safer as far as the Big Ten tournament is concerned. But they still need to keep winning next weekend in Purdue.
They're in ninth. And I mean, realistically, I said 4-2 and they're locked in, and I'm sticking by it.
Yeah, I think. Well,
if they go 3-3 and you get, I don't have the schedule.
I think one more and you're probably good. But
probably
you never know. But we'll talk Husker baseball and some Husker football with Evan Bland. We can also talk recruiting because he covers Nebraska football recruiting. And Nate Rohr, we just talked to Nate. He is headed. I don't know where they're doing it. If they're doing it in the Devaney Center, the selection show is tonight for Nebraska softball. And Nate will be there talking with Rhonda, and he'll be talking to us as well at 6:30.
Yeah, and I asked him, I said, so are they going to Austin or Baton Rouge? And we were talking a little bit about it, and he's hoping Austin for many, many reasons, including 6th Street. And we shared a couple of stories
Austin
about our times.
So cool.
Oh, yeah. Austin. I
was there in
evidently they're going to play softball there as well as what's going to happen after the games.
I have a story about going to Austin. Nebraska, of course, lost to Texas in 1999. We went to that game, a bunch of friends. That was the Carell Buckhalter fumble right at the 1-yard line.
Yep.
And then they came back and played Texas again in the championship game and just killed them, like 24-7, something like that. But we go to a bar on, was it 5th Street or 6th Street?
6th Street.
Okay, it is 6th Street. And there is Earl Campbell playing pool.
Yeah.
And we had a 20-minute conversation with Earl Campbell.
So there was a bar, cool. There was a bar called the Aquarium, and it's a typical downtown O Street bar, just long and narrow, right?
Yeah.
Walk in, and there is like 1,000-gallon fish tank on one of the walls. It was so cool. And you can see there's glass in the back, but there's no aquariums in them. And I had to go to the restroom. I go in the back, and I wind up at a trough, and I'm looking out through one of the pieces of glass I saw because I'm looking at the People Aquarium.
Yeah.
And I had a sign above it that said the People Aquarium.
Pretty
so
cool.
You're sitting there it's interesting place.
Awesome.
Yeah. 6th Street is what needs to happen to O Street.
Our daughter during the COVID, well, actually before COVID, thought, you know what? I'm going to take a gap year. This was after her senior year of college. I don't know if I want to go postgraduate stuff. She eventually ended up at Drexel and now is graduating from design school, doing really well. But at that time, she had just graduated from William and Mary and was looking for something to do for a while. Goes to Austin, wants to be a bartender on 6th Street.
Yeah.
And then COVID happens and everything gets shut down. So she came back, which was kind of...
I'm not going to lie. That's a plan that I could get behind.
Well, she was excited about it, but it didn't turn out. Time for the opening pitch with Mike Melby.
There's not a whole lot else to talk about other than softball is more than likely a 2 seed. Baton Rouge, Austin, and Nate Rohr just said there's a tiny chance Norman, Oklahoma, but hopefully not against the 2-time defending national champion and Jordy Ball's former team.
Yeah.
Baseball today, it falls 3-1 to Michigan. They win the series after 3-2 and 5-2 wins. 9 total runs, though, for the weekend in the final home series of the year, and it's going to be the final game of the year at Haymarket Park as well. Obviously, they're not going to be hosting a regional. Squarely on the really good side of the bubble, Nebraska sits at 13-14 in the Big Ten, and they are in 9th place. You've got Michigan State at 12-14, as well as Rutgers kind of tied for 10th. And then tied for 11th at 12-15 is Northwestern and Illinois. Nebraska plays at Purdue. Purdue is in 16th in the league. They sit at 10-16. They are 5-7 at home in league play this year. 13-10 overall. Nebraska overall on the road, 9-13, and they're 4-8 away from home in the Big Ten Conference. Nebraska has to win a minimum of 1, I think, to lock themselves in.
Mhm.
Actually, a minimum of 2 to lock themselves in, a minimum of 1 to probably still get in. If they get swept, I don't know that they get in, though. So let's just win the first one,
Don't get swept.
settle it all, and then
They've
get some
won 4
momentum.
straight series. You would have liked to have seen a couple of those be sweeps.
Yeah, but
That's for sure.
Obviously not the season they wanted. They struggled midweek again. They had some injuries, did not help them. Mason McConaughey, your ace on Friday night, goes down.
Yeah.
You had some other guys that kind of stepped up and grew a little bit with the opportunities that were presented to them, regardless with
Gabe
injuries.
Swanson's been hot as of late,
yeah.
but he went through a real cold spell for a while.
But bottom line, it's a team that underachieved, unfortunately, this year. But hey, they still have a chance to go make some noise.
Yeah.
You won the damn thing last year. Go do it again, and then see what happens with the hot Nebraska team in the regionals.
Few other things of note: Jordy Ball, Player of the Year, Pitcher of the Year in the Big Ten. She obviously had a great year for Nebraska. Of course, they fall to UCLA on Friday night. So they'll wait. And then Nate Rohr will be with us around 6:30, 6:35, something like that. We'll know where Nebraska is headed for softball. The voice for Nebraska softball. Leo Curtis, you would guess that, maybe it's a possibility. I didn't think it was going to be. Out of high school, he committed to Arizona State, and there are numerous schools that were after him. Creighton was one of them.
Yeah.
He is the second highest rated recruit since Bryce McGowan's. I didn't realize this. I thought, at least that's what I've seen some of the posts. I think Glenn Watson is third.
Yeah.
They're all top 100 recruits. 7'1", good shooter, 3-point shooter, averaged 15 points a game, 9 rebounds, 1.5 blocks, while shooting 64% from the field at D1 Iceland in 2023-24.
You have to think a former coworker of ours does a great job with college basketball, and he's so knowledgeable, and he went back and broke down high school recruits under Fred Hoiberg, and it's literally across the board, never lived up to potential. Every single one of them, unless they were not here.
Best high school recruit under Fred Hoiberg.
Sam is easily the best and most successful.
Well, Bryce,
Nebraska.
Bryce went to the NBA, but he only played 1 year.
That didn't count. I'm talking guys that have come into the program as high school or out of high school that have gone on and played multiple years at Nebraska that have been successful. Now
his son Sam, probably the biggest.
Is Kevin
crazy.
Cross went on and became an all-conference player elsewhere.
I think that's endemic of what's happening in college basketball in general. Guys don't stay for 4 years anymore.
No,
unless they're starting. Unless you're at Duke and you're starting.
Well, if you're at Duke and you're not starting, then you're going to transfer anyway. So
it reminds me a little bit of Nebraska volleyball.
Yeah.
I think Nebraska is a version of what Duke is in basketball, in volleyball.
And let's be honest, it kind of fits. I mean, John Cook did win 4 national titles, but realistically, should it be 7 or 8? Yeah. Where Mike Krzyzewski won 5 or 6, it should have been 10 or 12. He had teams sometimes that were more talented and they just didn't get it done. But that's the nature of the beast. When you're playing in the Final Four at that level of competition, I don't care if you're the best in the business, man. That's 30 plus games that have weighed on you, and now all of a sudden, all the pressure and all that from being a favorite. But yeah, Nebraska does feel a little bit like the Duke of college volleyball, just because of the fact that they've gotten to a lot of Final Fours and didn't win them as often as maybe we felt they should have.
And there is some volleyball news.
Yeah,
it appears Nebraska is going to be landing a transfer from Italy. Virginia.
She's a freshman though. She'll come in as a freshman.
She's 21 and yet she'll be a freshman.
Yep.
Virginia Adriano, I believe that's how you pronounce it. She'll be added to the 2025 class. Was on their younger version of their national team. Played with some of the best players in Italy. I'm looking at this lineup and I'm thinking, how are you going to? It's only one volleyball. Last time I counted. Nebraska's got so many stars, and you can't. I think maybe Carolyn Juravicius proved to us that you can't redshirt anybody anymore.
Well, I mean, Skylar Pierce is obviously an
yeah.
example that what she was okay and willing to, and I believe that you're going to wind up seeing the gal you just mentioned. I can't remember her name off the top of my head. Anyway,
Virginia Adriano.
Yeah,
I believe.
My thought is she probably redshirts, but who knows? I mean, Ryan Hunter was one that they you thought may redshirt, and then you saw what she did in the exhibition matches. Campbell Flynn. Hey, you've got Bergen Riley, 2-time first team Big Ten conference player.
I would not redshirt Campbell Flynn.
But that's the whole point, is you can't. She's too good. So
yeah.
To JB's point last week, he's not 100% sure that the roster, that the current construction is going to be the construction when they serve the first one.
There's going to be a girl or two that transfer.
Yeah, there might be.
By the way, she's not even here yet. Second team All Big 12. The transfer from Baylor is coming in.
Yeah,
I mean it's crazy how good or competitive Nebraska should be this year. But I think that's just the way of the world. And Wisconsin, I believe, just got the Florida transfer player of the year. So it's going to be hard to win a national championship, but it always is. I just wonder, I mean, how many mouths can you feed when it comes to volleyball? Another story that we can talk about a little bit later on. Grant Segrin transferred to Oklahoma State, 6'6", 305. Earlier this spring, Matt Rohr said when he figures it all out, he's going to be really, really good. He's only a redshirt freshman. He had an offer from Wisconsin as well. Ends up at Oklahoma State, who was 3-9 this past season. Gundy's only had 2 losing seasons in his entire tenure. But he gets Segrin, and I think Segrin could be good.
Well, and it's one of those where when he said it, you always wonder, because Matt Rule's done this before.
Yeah.
As soon as this guy realizes that what we're telling him is actually the truth,
yes,
and he goes and does what we know he can do, and you've seen guys step up and do what the coaches believed. And this seems to be the first time that Matt Rule has done that, and the player, I don't think, appreciated being called out. And I did just a hunch. That's the perception I have of the situation.
Part of it is he's buried on the depth chart. No matter what Rule says, they've got their starting 5. Segrin's not one of them. And then you have Teddy Prohaska coming back from an injury.
Turner
Corcoran's coming back from an injury. You got Tyler Knack still available. You've got a bunch of guys that could play. And a bunch of pretty good freshmen as well. Hell, Grant Bricks was a 4-star. Yeah. Everybody wanted him coming out of high school. Who knows? I don't think Nebraska will be hurting. I think it's possible he looked at the market, which a lot of players do now, and said, hey, I can get $100,000 instead of nothing, which is probably what he's getting now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all the best to him. I hope he develops into an all-conference player and gets a shot in the NFL. I mean, great kid.
Yeah. Well, if he can play left tackle, he'll make money in the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of what happens. Let's get to break. Come back with more. Connor Happer of 1620 The Zone just called a Creighton baseball game today. They've been winning series after series. They'd lose today to Xavier in Ed Service's very last home game as Creighton coach. We'll talk a little baseball, mostly Husker football, with Connor Happer coming up next.
This Mother's Day, let Elder George
Stevens, Creighton, boy, they've been really red hot. They lose today, but they win the series over Xavier. They're 34-14 now, and 14-4 in the Big East. In Ed Service's last year, what's he been like to be around this year, Connor?
Hey guys.
Hey, how are you?
What's up?
It's great to talk to you.
Yeah, it's been forever. Connor Happer of
been a
1620 The Zone, my old partner in Lincoln on the ticket, and now then he moved away. So I'm going to be big and famous, and I'm leaving you. That's what happened.
I'm just right down the road, and I'm still in Lincoln. And I was in Lincoln on Tuesday, and
All right.
I suppose we could talk about that whole fiasco with the Creighton, Nebraska thing too. But no, I mean it's been interesting. You know, they brought in his successor. They brought in Mark Kingston, who got fired at South Carolina after last year, and you know, those guys, he brought in his whole new staff, and they've won games, you know, and so I think now they're like at the point where, you know, they're dead focused on one thing, and it's getting to a regional, and they got a pretty good chance. They can, if they sweep next weekend, they'll win the conference regular season, and they'll be the 1 seed in the Big East tournament and have a chance to send Coach Service off with a regional. So they're feeling good about themselves right now.
Connor Happer, one of the voices of Creighton baseball, and of course on 1620 The Zone, the host of the Connor Happer Show. You mentioned you've called a couple Nebraska games. What's wrong with the Huskers this year? I mean, they're not terrible. They've won 4 series in a row, but they're not nearly what they were last year when they won the Big Ten tournament. You've seen them up close and personal. What do you think?
Yeah, just inconsistent. You know, the offense has ticked up a little bit lately. The thing that had bothered me about them over the last couple of years is just they strike out too much, and then it kind of just feels like it's one thing or the other. You know, whatever night it is, either you don't have a guy who's going to throw strikes consistently, or you come up and you strike out a couple times in a key situation, or something like that. It just kind of feels like it's one thing or the other. So hasn't quite clicked yet. But I tell you what, I mean, winning that series this weekend is a big deal, and you know, you make your way theoretically into the conference tournament. And there's some good teams in the conference, but it's a toss-up. I don't know who wins that thing. So I don't know. Maybe you get hot at the right time and you give it one last run here.
Kind of just from the fact that you've been around teams, and you know, you get some locker room chatter, you know, going on the bus or on the plane or whatever. What causes teams to underachieve that you've seen or been around or heard of?
Well, I think the leadership is a really big part. You know, it's do you have the voices, and you know, specifically if we're talking about like Nebraska baseball, like Will Bolt knows exactly what he wants out of his leadership structure, like exactly what he wants out of the voices in his locker room. And I don't know, he just might not be getting all of that this year with some of those guys sort of at the top. You know, you think back to the year they went to the regional in Arkansas and pushed Arkansas all the way to Game 7. Like those dudes, obviously they were really talented. They had, you know, like they had a couple major league players on their roster, which is helpful, but also like, you know, you had some dudes who just weren't afraid to get after you, and they were going to make it miserable to play. I mean, I'm talking about like, you know, Jackson Hallmark and Mojo Hagee and guys like that. Like, so I think they're kind of trying to find that still, and some of it is youth a little bit as well. So there's a bunch of stuff that goes into it, and you just don't want to be in a place where if one thing, you know, if one little pebble gets in the windshield, then the whole thing blows up. And it's felt that way a couple times.
It feels like Nebraska has to get a little lucky in recruiting. They did with Max Anderson, who was going to Texas A&M. They were full, so he went to Nebraska. Or Bryce Matthews, who maybe they struck gold with him. The best players in Nebraska have usually gone to the SEC. It's just going to be the way of the world for baseball in Nebraska, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And you'd like to see more of those guys, you know, stick around. And but you're right. It's just really tough. Like if they got offers, and you know, we're going into the future with revenue sharing, they can, you know, like LSU is actually paying their baseball team to play, and they're funding all their scholarships and all that stuff. I mean, that is a completely different ball game than it would be at a place like, you know, at a place in the Big Ten for baseball. So yeah, I think if you have that offer on the table, you want to play against the best, or you want to go pro. But with that being said, like, you don't have to get, you don't have to get all of the best players, but you should be able to keep a few of them. And I do think there's a lot on, if we're talking about both Creighton and Nebraska's roster, certainly, Omaha's even as well. There's a bunch of them. And they're good and they're solid players, and it should be enough to win in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Connor Happer joining us on the Summit Lawns Talk and Text line. Connor, let's switch gears a little bit and talk Nebraska football. It's a little early to go ahead and crown Nebraska off-season national champions again, but
too early.
It's too early.
A couple weeks.
Yeah, a couple more weeks. We got to at least get to June.
Right. Get to June.
But what are your thoughts and feelings since the bowl game win in New York?
Yeah, I guess we have to wait until we get like a couple kickoff times. Like
there you go.
Yeah, we're in May. Once that whenever they announce the Michigan game, whether it's big noon or a night game on NBC, then we could be like, okay, off-season national champs, here we come. No, I mean, I like what they've done. I mean, they've completely, changed. It feels like, what they were trying to build when they got here, which I don't mind. Like, you adapt with the times and you adapt with the, with the way college football is going to be going forward. They've been really aggressive. They were aggressive on some guys in the transfer portal. I really love what they did on the offensive line. Like, if there's a position that I just feel so much more comfortable about right now than I did a year ago, it's that spot. And you brought in 2 transfers to start, and you feel good about what you have coming back at a couple of, at center, and then you'll figure out right tackle and do that whole thing too. And then, returning with the quarterback is you should expect him to take a step up, like the offensive coordinator, right? Like, it's so, I mean, there's a lot of good things. I like how they've positioned themselves. You still have to do it, on the field in the fall, and they're going to be in a lot of close games again. So I get the sense that we're going to be talking about a lot of the same stuff, even though it does feel a little bit different right now than it did a year ago, and certainly when Rule got here.
Yeah. You said you're comfortable with the offensive line. I'm guessing not as comfortable with the running back position. They swung and missed on Sharmar Brown and didn't get him. He ends up at Miami. How concerned are you about the running back position?
Yeah, I've been pretty vocal about that. Like, I am pretty concerned. It's been sort of confusing the way that they've approached the position. Like, you hear them talk about how, they want to build the roster like an NFL roster almost. And we've seen what has happened in the NFL. It's just a position that, everybody has said, okay, you could find a running back who could run for 750 yards for you, and then we'll find another one who could catch however many balls out of the backfield. It's just, it's kind of a dime a dozen in the NFL. I think, Nebraska is always, you guys know this. I mean, Nebraska has always been a place where you can have a 1,000-yard, 1,200-yard, even 1,500-yard back, and they've been at their best when they've had those guys. And maybe they do. Like, maybe they do have that this year. It's going to be a lot of pressure on Emmett Johnson, because really where the uncertainty comes in is behind him. You just, like, you believe the hype on Quentin Ives, but you still have to see it. He's got a couple carries from the bowl game underneath his belt. And then it gets really, really scary after that if you don't think that's scary enough. So, yeah, I think they, took a shot at Marty Brown in the portal and came up empty. So there's going to be a lot on those two guys' shoulders, and hopefully they're able to hold up.
Yeah, like, is Connor Booth the next Danny Woodhead? I don't know.
He might have to be.
Yeah. He might have to be. He may not have a choice.
Jermaine Parker, maybe?
Yeah, there's some guys there that the potential. That's, you hear it. That's why they're here. They've gone through, they
haven't had 1,000-yard rusher
Connor
since Divine Azigbo.
Yeah. Connor Booth, obviously a freshman. But.
Yeah, so you got to find, I just, like, Amir Abdullah was a really, really good player, and he bailed Nebraska out so many times after he took over for Rex back there. But you don't have to have Amir Abdullah. You don't have to be like a superstar at the position. I believe what I hear on Emmett Johnson. Like, I think he's going to be a really productive player, but it sounds like, based on who is not there behind him at the moment, he's just going to have the ball in his hands a lot. We're talking about running the ball, and we're talking about catching the ball out of the backfield, and his touches ticked way up when Dana Holgerson took over the offense last year. So, like, all right, you're putting it all on his shoulders, and maybe they know something that we don't. about him, but we'll see how that one goes because it's going to be a lot on him.
Talking with Connor Happer, 1620 The Zone, the Connor Happer Show, also co-host of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. You guys have talked about this as well. Michigan coach Sharon Moore suspended for their first Big Ten road game versus Nebraska. He's going to coach their first game. Then he's going to coach I think they're going to play again or coach against Central Michigan. Then he's going to be back against Oklahoma and suspended against Nebraska. It's all confusing. But of course, that's part of the Connor Stallion thing, the whole, videotaping different schools, Nebraska, one of those. What's going on with Michigan? I mean, why are they disrespecting Nebraska in your opinion?
Well, I think, I would take it that way. Like there's no harm in not, like if you're Nebraska, you're, trying to muster up some extra motivation for that game. It'll be a big game no matter what, assuming Nebraska starts 3-0, I guess, which is no guarantee, but the Cincinnati game being the big one, trying to get to that point. But like I would take it that way. I mean, I know Sharon Moore went to Oklahoma and he wants to coach in that game and all that stuff, but if they made him pick his own, like, why not suspend himself for the two most meaningless games on the schedule? Like all this is for trying to make the NCAA, trying to trick the NCAA into believing that you have some sort of remorse for what you've done, right? You're trying to feed them some sort of appetizer before the NCAA comes in and ultimately, puts whatever sanctions they're going to put on Michigan for this entire thing. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to appetize them a little bit. And, maybe by suspending himself basically for a big road conference opener, that is more appetizing to the NCAA. But I don't know. I just wish the NCAA would come in and make a decision on this entire thing. That way we didn't have to, if you're the Michigan coach right now, you just apparently have to take a suspension for 2 games every single year in perpetuity. At this point, like, I don't really get it, but this thing is not over, I suppose.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, how excited are you about a 16-year-old quarterback coming to Nebraska?
I was just going to ask that.
Yeah.
Forgive me, not like at all, like 0%. I like what he's doing. It seems like he's a peer recruiter, like he's kind of gathering people. Like, so it's always good from a relationship standpoint. You build those connections over a long period of time. But everybody, like you have Dylan Raiola for the next at least 2 seasons. Then maybe you go TJ Lateef, and then you have Dayton Raiola, and then Trey Taylor's in the class after that. So it's hard for me to even think about what the quarterback situation might look like in 2028 or 2029 by the time he's here. But it doesn't have to all be about that, right? It could be about his ability to peer recruit, and he's basically acting as a staff member right now with the upcoming junior class. So that's cool. I mean, that's a good thing for Nebraska. I've outside of the clips on Twitter, I've seen him throw a football 0 times outside of those clips. So I don't think it's about that. It's just about the other stuff right now until it gets closer to actually being a player here.
And the peer recruiting is probably the biggest thing there, because Dylan Raiola didn't get a chance to do that. He committed so late that he really didn't get a peer recruit anybody to Nebraska.
It's a good point. It's a good point. Like, so you have this over a long period of time, and who knows what kind of recruit he ends up being in the class, but at least you have those hooks sunk in, and he's able. I mean, he's really out there talking Nebraska up. So yeah, you'll take that any day of the week.
Grant Seagram gets called out in the media a little bit by Coach Rule, saying if he ever realizes how good he could be an all-conference player. And Grant Seagram says, well, let's see if I can do it in the Big 12. Do you think that had anything to do with it, or do you think maybe he already had his mind made up?
Money.
How big of a loss is it?
No, I think that was probably more of you'll hear this. You'll just hear this when guys, are about to go into the portal, or you could look at it back in hindsight. It almost felt like, I hope he stays because he's really a nice depth piece for us. And I think it's a really good lesson for everybody. Like if you're looking to, if you find yourself on the second or third line, but you believe in yourself as a player and you think you could play at the Power 5 level and you're like a sophomore or junior or something like that, go into the portal, but go into the portal after spring ball, because look at the market for those guys right now. I mean, you can make money, but there's a few teams out there who are looking to fill like very specific roles, and there's only going to be a few guys in the transfer portal who fit that in spring ball. And so if you're Oklahoma State, why not? You got a guy who's capable of playing at that level, take him in the spring portal. So no, I think it's a loss in the sense of, for Nebraska, in the sense of you need all the tackle depth that you can get. That would have been nice for them to have this year, but I don't blame him at all for trying to play a little bit at Oklahoma State.
And let's face it, you've got college football turning into the NFL, and there are people like Jerry Jones who think George Pickens is a great addition to the team, and he's going to get paid. Seagram's going to get paid or have a better opportunity because somebody believes in him and he gets some cash out of it. Heck yeah.
Is Boone Pickens still dead though? I think he won't be able to pay him because Boone Pickens is gone. Hey, how big of a deal is it that Troy Dannon is on the college football selection committee to you?
I think it's good to be in the room. I don't like, as far as the actual functionality of it, like, okay, he gets to, be in the room when the teams get picked. Like, it doesn't really matter. I mean, especially if we're talking about from a actual selection process standpoint. If we go to 14 teams, we're talking about 1 at-large spot. If we go to 16 teams, we're talking about 3 at-large spots. So it's not like, there's a whole lot to do in there. However,
hey, but a 6-6 Nebraska team could all of a sudden be a 15 seed.
Yeah, just wait until they expand the playoff to 80 teams. I mean, hell, the college basketball tournament, we might be headed that direction too, which is ridiculous and another thing. But I think it's good to to be around those people. He's clearly a good networker and clearly enjoys kind of working behind the scenes and talking to people and getting people's input and stuff like that. So that's good for him to be for him to be around those people, power brokers in the game in college football, and I think that's probably about all it is.
Connor Happer, 1620 The Zone of the Connor Happer Show and co-host of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. I know you went to Nebraska. You're kind of a fan of Creighton. What do you think of the commit of Leo Curtis to Nebraska? He was offered by Creighton.
Yeah, big guy. You add him as a developmental piece who could come in and sit and learn or play. You never know these days when you get, especially an international guy. Like, you never know when you get them how far advanced that they're going to be. And so I'd be curious to see what he could do right away, what he looks like right away. I wouldn't write the book. I wouldn't just throw anybody out as far as playing time at this point in the off season. But I think it's a good ad. I really like what Nebraska basketball has done. Like, I think they've added a lot of offense and guys who can shoot the three, and size. I mean, so I think what you're trying to probably do is, get some more high quality 3-point shooters for guys around counter-adhesion, but you're also adding a little bit of length on defense, which should just, raise the floor a little bit more.
Happy Mother's Day to Jackie. Did you get her anything good today?
Yeah, I was gone at the ballpark most of the day, but we celebrated yesterday. It was a good time. Tom, thank you so much for having me. Mel B, thank you. It's great to talk to you guys.
Great to talk to you, Connor.
You're coming back, whether you like it or not.
Well, I'm in whenever you want.
All right. Thanks. Appreciate it, Connor. Connor Happer, my old co-host on The Ticket here in Lincoln and part of The Zone these days, the Connor Happer Show. He's got his own show and co-host of the Locked On Nebraska podcast with Mitch Sherman. That's a really good show as well. It gives you everything Nebraska in kind of a half an hour.
I still say one of the best things Connor ever did was him and Mark Weiler with 3 beers later.
Oh, fantastic. I miss Mark as well.
Yeah.
He's now a professor somewhere. I should have asked Connor about what Mark's up to, but he went somewhere and now he's a professor.
Well, he went to the Zone.
Well, he went to the Zone and then he left there, and then he became a big shot professor guy.
Yep.
So, all right, let's get the break. Back with more. It's Husker Rewind. Mike Melby, Tom Stevens. More after this.
They're storming the floor. Tim Miles has punched our ticket, Husker fans. It's time to twerk. Let's go dancing.
On 1499.3 KLIN.
My wife tells me, because she goes to Facebook more than I do, Mark Onweiler is a journalism professor now, somewhere. He's at the University of Missouri. That's impressive. Yeah. Mark Onweiler's a smart guy as well. I hate all these people. No, I love Mark. He was one of the best bosses I've ever had.
He's one of the best human beings I've met.
He's just
in
a
my life,
really
so.
good guy. You complain about different things or different people after a radio show. And Mark was kind of my therapist for like 3 or 4 years. So it was really more than that, actually. I started in 2011, got out of there in 2023. Wow. I was there at the ticket for a while.
Yeah.
It's fun being here with you.
Yeah. We have a good time.
We have a good time on this radio show. You mentioned that Nebraska always wins the preseason.
The off-season.
Preseason national championship.
The off-season.
Off-season.
Yeah.
Preseason, off-season. They win again. The USA Today ranked the top college football coaches in America. No surprise, Kirby Smart, number 1. Ryan Day, number 2. Dabo Swinney ranks 3rd, followed by Steve Sarkisian at Texas, James Franklin, Penn State, Dan Lanning, Oregon, Marcus Freeman, Notre Dame, Kalen DeBoer seems a little high for me at Alabama. I think they underachieved. Then you've got Lane Kiffin, Brian Kelly, the top 10. Matt Rule is 18th.
Where's Jim Harbaugh?
Jim Harbaugh is no longer at Michigan, and Sharon Moore did not make the list. Harbaugh is with the San Diego Chargers. I don't even know if would he make a top 10 list for top coaches in the NFL right now?
No.
You don't think so? They had a pretty good year last year. In year number 1, he was pretty good. I think Jim Harbaugh is a really good football coach. Now, do I think he's a cheater? Yes. He's absolutely a cheater, but he wins everywhere he goes. He won in the NFL the first time around. I think he won in college, and he's going to win again. If you think he's dishonest, we could talk about that as well. But I think he's also a very good football coach.
Yeah, he is. He just.
But Matt Rule is ranked 18th. Too high, too low? Too high?
From the fact that if he would have been ranked 18th prior to season 1 at Nebraska, it would have felt like he got his due for what he did at Temple and Baylor. After 2 seasons at Nebraska, 18th to me seems a little high.
Does it have anything to do with they know it's year number 3, he always has success in year number 3?
And that may be.
Temple, Baylor. I think it's different, though. Year number 3 at Nebraska is different from those other schools in that you're talking about revenue sharing now. You're talking about the portal. It's no longer about development. Heck, Nebraska's not even recruiting many high school kids from Nebraska anymore.
No, and the other issue here is that it's also drastically different because this is the first time he's trying to turn a program around that actually has expectations and actual memories of being the most dominant force in college football over the course of the better part of 25 years. And that's what's expected. So it's not like there's not a little bit of pressure that he never had before.
It's interesting that you're the one that talked me into thinking that Rule would be good for Nebraska. And now I'm on board with Rule more so than you are.
I'm not on board. I'm ready to see.
I think Nebraska fans in
Cincinnati.
general, that we say they win the offseason all the time. I think the people that I talk to don't even want to talk about it. They're all like prove it. They're all in prove it mode.
Yeah, I'm not saying anything negative in any way, shape, or form. It's time because there were things last year that I felt could have been done differently in game time action. That I feel like would make me have a little bit more belief that things are going to change. But at the end of the day, they wound up 7-6. They got to a bowl game. They won a bowl game. They've got, to me, one of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten. I think they've got as solid of a receiving core as we've had at Nebraska in a while as a core, not just Stanley Morgan. Okay. Not just Trey Palmer, but they've got some guys. They got some dudes.
Yep.
Um,
When we talk about prove it, proving it would be beating Michigan. First Big Ten game on the schedule. You're at home. Sharon Moore, their head coach, will not be there.
Yeah.
He's going to coach the very first game. Then he's just because it's the very first game, I would assume. And then he's going to coach against Oklahoma. And then he's suspended against Central Michigan and Nebraska, which is weird.
Well, but the flip side is he can self-impose all he wants, but the NCAA,
they can still, they didn't work with Harbaugh. Harbaugh, they self-imposed.
Yeah.
They did the same thing. He ended up, I think they gave him a 3-game suspension, the university, and then the NCAA said, that's great, 3 more.
Yeah. So the NCAA could come in and say, no, it's now a 4-game suspension, and you're also suspended for the first 2.
Sharon Moore apparently was involved in obstructing the investigation with Connor Stallions, who was an assistant. He bought a bunch of tickets, he bought the tickets himself. At least he did that. Went to a bunch of Big Ten games, like 100 Big Ten games, and was caught videotaping various signals and plays.
The best part, there was a parody that I do not remember who did it. Fully acted out, and they had somebody playing Connor Stallions that had kind of the similar look, and it's 2 college kids, right?
Yeah.
And they go, so you want us to go ahead and use the money, the exact amount that we're going to charge on our credit cards, and you're going to reimburse us through a trackable Venmo or Cash App for the exact dollar amount that we're buying these tickets, and you want us to wear Michigan gear. Yes, by all means, make sure, represent the school. And it's this every single thing you could do to buy one of those giant spotlights that go hundreds of miles into the air to let everyone know that you're there.
Yeah.
Like every time he had an opportunity to buy a new giant flashlight and let everybody know what was going on, he did it.
Yep. I mean, that guy's, there's going to be not just one, but 60, 30 for 30 type things on Connor Stallions. There already are on Connor Stallions. But I asked this to Connor Happer. Should Nebraska be offended that they decided to suspend Sharon Moore for the Nebraska game? I understand why he would want to coach against Oklahoma. He played there. He was an offensive lineman for Oklahoma. So I guess I understand that. But they're suspending him for the Central Michigan game. He's coaching in the opening game with New Mexico. Then he's coaching against Oklahoma, suspended versus Central Michigan and Nebraska. Should we be offended that he's doing this?
I mean, I would take some slight if I am in the complex. Let's put it that way.
I said 100 games. I think he only bought tickets to like 30 Big Ten games.
Yeah, but still, every time he made sure that they wore their Michigan gear.
Whereas Connor Stallions is now at Belleville High School in Michigan. Belleville.
So let me ask you this. Is he an assistant coach that goes on the road and charts other teams' plays?
I don't know. Maybe he's cheating. They did make the state playoffs this past year, probably because he's videotaping other team signals and giving to the assistants and the players. Interesting dude. But they did win that national championship, and they won it handily. They beat Washington 34-13. And there is talk that Michigan should be stripped of that national title.
Yeah, I think they should.
But
absolutely.
Here's what I think of teams getting stripped of national titles. Are we going to not remember it?
Yeah.
Are we going to think that it didn't happen?
Well, and then 15, 20 years later, I mean, Reggie Bush is like, give me my damn trophy back.
Right.
So.
That's right. Yeah. And if we look back at the 80s, and the 90s, with stuff going on in Oklahoma with Barry Switzer, even stuff maybe at Nebraska that we wouldn't approve of. I mean, you could, or Alabama.
There's a few things that,
I mean, that was an era where you could just have 150 guys on your roster. So if they think about going to Kansas or Kansas State or Iowa State, you just say, come here. We'll pay you some money, maybe under the table. Not that that ever happened. Be on our roster.
No.
And, you won't play because you're 4th string, but you we won't have to play against you.
Yeah.
That was the whole recruiting philosophy.
And if you wind up in jail, we got a couple other guys that can take your spot because we got 150 guys.
That's kind of the way it was. That was the way of cheating in the 80s. I'm not sure it was any worse than it is now.
One of my favorite movies, for whatever reason, Nick Nolte and Blue Chips. I mean, if you don't think that is what happened day in and day out for some of the programs, I think you're wrong. You know the movie I'm talking about?
Blue Chips is great.
Yeah, with Shaq and Tracy McGrady.
Oh, such a good movie. Nick Nolte.
Yep.
He played kind of a Bobby Knight type of character.
Yeah. Yeah, and the best part is when he ultimately walks away from the game and he's walking back to his house from the arena, and he sees some kids out playing pickup basketball under the lights in a playground, and he goes over and starts coaching them. It's like a great ending scene.
I'll have to watch that again. I mean, my favorite basketball movie is Hoosiers.
Hoosiers, yeah.
I've seen it 100 times, but Blue Chips is way up there.
Yeah. Well, there's only two that I think I've ever watched. I was not a Space Jam person.
What was the one with
from Trey
Robbie
Stone and Matt
Benson?
Parker? I don't know.
Benson movie. That was really good. I enjoyed that. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there.
Absolutely.
At the top of the hour, I'm gonna play a little game. I'll name the mom from the TV show. The mom's name in the TV show. You tell me what the TV show is.
I don't know if I'm going to be very good at it, but we'll try.
Mother's Day is a great day. I mean, Father's Day, probably a little overrated. What do they really do? But the moms, they kind of carry the house. So happy Mother's Day to all the moms. Hour number 2, we are going to talk with Nate Rohr. The selection show has begun on ESPN2. By 6:30, we'll know where Nebraska is going to be playing, what regional they'll be in, and we'll talk to Nate Rohr live. More on the way. Husker Rewind, Tom Stevens, Mike Melby. More coming up.
Husker Rewind with your hosts Tom Stevens and Mike Melby.
Welcome to the circus.
They'll hand it to him off the left side, looking and pay dirt. Ramir Johnson, the local boy, the Harlan native, punches it in for Nebraska, and they strike first.
Here comes the serve. Straight ahead, past Schumacher, set in the middle, Schmeck out of bounds. We're done. Huskers win. Golly grandkids. Nebraska sweeps Wisconsin on the road, no less.
And for the first time in 41 years, Nebraska knocks off the top-ranked team in the country, and they are storming the floor. They are storming the floor. They are storming the floor. Love it. Say your name, Fred Hoiberg. There's your signature win.
Line drive towards second. Caden Grumbaugh's there. He squeezes the line drive. And on a night filled with emotion, honoring our leader, Greg Sharp, with his eyes on the diamond and his hands on our shoulders, Nebraska takes down 16th ranked Vanderbilt 6-4. Sharpie, that one is for you.
Now, here's Tom Stevens and Mike Melby on 1499.3 KLIN.
Coming up on our 3-year anniversary of this show and our 1-year anniversary here at
Actually,
1400 KLIN.
Actually, I mean, the date isn't exact. However,
I didn't get you anything, if you were wondering.
Yeah, I didn't get you anything.
You get nothing like it.
Here's what I can tell you is that this was the Sunday 3 years ago that was our first show.
Okay.
Because it was the second Saturday in May, because the first
Kentucky
Saturday
Derby.
in May was the Kentucky Derby, and we
Right.
did the opening was called the Starting Gate.
That's right.
Because we were in the middle of Triple Crown season,
And we were starting the show.
and you and I love horse racing
Yeah.
and all that. By the way, for those that are horse racing fans, Legacy Downs at Warhorse Casino on West Denton Road in Lincoln, Nebraska, hosted on Friday afternoon at 3:00 their first live race on the 3/4 mile racetrack. I unfortunately was at work. I don't know.
No. Somebody won.
Somebody won. They're going to
horse
run
did.
6 races a day, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday here for the next month. It is exciting for me.
I've been out there a few times. It's good. The
it's a
food's pretty good.
beautiful facility.
It's a beautiful facility. And as soon as they get Texas Hold'em, a room for Texas Hold'em, I'll be there every night.
Yeah.
And then I'll be in trouble.
The final 4 years of live racing at the old State Fair Park, Lincoln Racecourse, of those final 4 years, there was one live meet that I did not attend. And I was there for all 9 races every single time.
Yeah.
I love horse racing.
I love it too. We used to go out all the time. And as I mentioned to you many times, my uncle was a jockey.
Yep.
So I followed it as a kid. I was a trainer and walked the horses, a horse walker. I don't even remember what they call it.
Hot walker.
Hot walker. Thank you. I was not that hot even as a kid, but I did walk the horses. I have no music for this, but play it in your head.
Okay. Happy Days.
It's for funny you should mention Happy Days.
It might be on there.
It might be on there.
It's probably the only one I know.
In celebration of Mother's Day, I give you the mom, you give me the TV show. We'll start with a layup. Carol Brady.
Well, the Brady Bunch.
Obviously.
Come on.
If it's in the name, well, you got to have Carol Brady in there.
What you do. You do.
Edith Bunker.
All on the Family. I love that. How inappropriate.
You couldn't
was
have it today.
How inappropriate was it that was my favorite show when I was 6 years old?
Well, there were 3 channels, so you had to watch it.
Probably molded me.
Marge. I can't give her last name
because it's Simpson, and that would give away the title.
So you're 3 for 3. Claire Huxtable.
That's the Cosby Show.
That's the Cosby Show. Roseanne's kind of a giveaway.
I'm going to go with the better show, The Connors. Where they talk about Roseanne.
Roseanne would be the worst mom on here, I would think.
Yeah.
There aren't a lot of single moms on this list. In fact, I think this is the only one. Shirley Partridge.
Oh, Partridge
Family. See, I should have just said Shirley.
Boy, I had such a crush. I don't remember what the actress's name was, but
I don't either.
She was the cute one.
She was in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
She was a very beautiful lady. June Cleaver.
No, Leave It to Beaver.
Yes. You may not get this one. Elise Keaton. Keaton.
That's Michael J. Fox and Family Ties.
Okay, nice.
If I remember
nice.
right.
Elise Keaton. Kitty Foreman.
Oh, that 90s show is better than that 70s show. But yes, it's Kitty Foreman.
The dad was my dad.
Red.
Red was a lot like my dad. very much a tough guy, ex-Marine, always threatening you. It was great, but never did it. He was like Red in that he threatened you, but nothing ever happened.
Okay, Oklahoma hosting. Hang on. So they put Oklahoma up,
All
and
right.
the entire
Oklahoma's
team
up
is
there.
like, they do a golf clap. 2-time national champion Oklahoma just had their name appear on the board. Let's see. This
many
could
people
be.
think it's going to be Oklahoma versus Nebraska.
It's not.
Boston. That's good.
Yeah,
'Cause
that's
nobody wants to play those guys.
Yeah.
Okay, continue on. Kitty Foreman, you got that one. That 70s show and that 90s show. Her first name, I can't remember her last name. Claire.
You already did Claire Huxtable.
There's another Claire.
Give me a decade.
Recent, within the last 10 years.
Ooh, not good.
Okay,
could it be Young Sheldon?
No, Modern Family.
Okay, I never watched Modern Family.
Modern Family's very good.
So the University of Nebraska Omaha has appeared on the board.
This one's easy. Obviously, Olivia Walton would be
the Waltons.
The Waltons.
Night, John Boy.
Florida Evans.
Oh, Florida Evans. I think there's a skit from this show where they yell about her name is Florida, but I don't remember.
Very famous 70s show.
I was going to say, is it the Jeffersons?
Close. I think no, it wasn't a spinoff of the Jeffersons. It was Good Times.
Yes.
Jimmy J.J. Walker.
Yes.
Marie Barone.
Just by the name, I'm going to go The Sopranos. I have no idea.
No, everybody loves Raymond.
Never watched it.
I thought it was pretty good. And Marion Cunningham.
Well, Happy Days.
Happy Days.
So
Marion Cunningham on this list was probably most like my mom. My mom was a lot like Marion Cunningham. Great lady. My mom was my best friend. So there you go. Anything else? There's a few things that I want to talk about. We mentioned that Nebraska got a basketball commit. I was really excited to learn that Nebraska got Leo Curtis. Now, so Connor called him a developmental guy. Maybe he is.
Yeah, and one of the guys I mentioned, one of our former coworkers, does a great job with college basketball, and he said he is definitely a redshirt this first year.
Oh, he is,
and well, that's what he feels is going to happen.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything carved in stone here. But
again, the danger of redshirting guys.
But he's also the one that pointed out that Nebraska has failed, other than Sam Hoiberg, at every high school recruit they've had since Fred's been here.
I just think there's such a big danger in redshirting anybody. I wish they would just go to 5 years.
See, now
everybody
that's
gets 5
to
years.
Happen. Georgia Tech at 27-22, they were on the bubble. That's what a celebration is supposed to look like.
That's exciting. Well, yeah, Texas, they know they're in, or Oklahoma, they know they're in. They were the number 1 overall seed, right?
I don't believe. Well,
did
probably
Texas
said if they were or not.
Either Oklahoma or Texas
yeah.
was the number 1 overall seed. But he's 7-1. He's a 4-star center. He's the highest ranked commit, I believe, to Nebraska. Bryce McGowan's is number 1 all time, 5-star. He is not a 5-star, Leo Curtis, but he did have offers from a lot of different schools.
A lot of offers. And I'll be honest with you, what his game is, and what you see on the stat sheet and hear about with him, if that's not a Greg McDermott, Creighton type of player, I don't know who is.
And he's a Fred. This is the player I thought we were getting when Hoiberg was hired.
Yeah,
guys that could have played at Iowa State and shoot. I'm excited about him. He played his senior year at Academy, in Boston. He originally committed to Arizona State in January, reopened his recruitment in April before he picked up the Arizona State offer and committed to Arizona State. He also had offers from Creighton, Stanford, and others. As I mentioned, second highest ranked commit of all time. Glenn Watson, I believe, was the second highest ranked commit of all time. But I like the bigs for Nebraska. Even if he redshirts, you got Rick Mass, 6'9", 6'10". Oogie, you know how to pronounce his name. I don't.
Yarushevicius.
Watch your mouth.
Yarushevicius.
Then you've got Berke Buchten-Gel, who's 6'10", and Leo Curtis at 7'1". Then there's Jared Garcia. I've seen reports that he's 6'9". You've seen reports that he's 6'7".
Yeah.
But I'm a little worried about Garcia's knees or injury history.
Yeah.
But they've got some bigs.
Hey,
Some
I was
legitimate bigs.
5'11" as a sophomore in high school playing basketball at Waverly. I evidently shrunk as soon as the season ended because I've been 5'9" ever since.
Were you a good high school basketball player?
I was good enough to not get cut from the JV team. And then I didn't care a whole lot for the basketball coach that was my JV coach who became the head coach my junior year, so I didn't play anymore.
I played as a sophomore.
They're dancing on the tables.
That's Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State.
The Cowgirls. I played as a sophomore at Lincoln High, and they couldn't decide on several players, so they just took 19 guys on the sophomore team.
Yeah.
I'd say 9 of them quit.
Yeah.
But I didn't play. My next year didn't make the JV team the following year, so I played intramurals. But our team in intramurals is pretty damn good. We won the intramural championship.
Nice.
So
wish we would have had intramurals. Would have been more fun.
Yeah, it was more fun than getting yelled at. And our coaches back in that era were kind of yellers.
I'm not going to lie. I was the best play-by-play guy of driveway basketball and pickup basketball at Hamlin
You did that as well?
Elementary.
I announced my own games in the driveway as well.
Yeah, it annoyed the hell out of my friends at times.
I'll tell you what, I was unbeatable in my driveway because there was a power line and there was a dead spot in the backboard. I knew how to get it over the power line and I knew how to hit the dead spot all the time. And if you hit the dead spot, the ball would go dead and it would go right in the hoop.
Okay, so your friends would probably be a little upset with you if you were doing it like too much or too enthusiastic for your own, your shirt. If you guys are shirts and the other team scans or whatever, but your team did well. However, did you ever have them get mad at you when you didn't make a call that was as excited as someone else wanted it to be if they hit like a long three?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I did.
I was pretty, remember Tim Moreland?
Yeah.
He was my favorite announcer of all time for more Nebraska basketball than football. Some of his calls were crazy.
Yeah.
For basketball, he ended up leaving Nebraska and he was a broadcast professor in Minnesota.
I was gonna say, went to the Twin Cities, I know.
But he was also for a year or two the voice of the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah.
He left Nebraska. And so I kind of tried to do it as Tim Moreland. I know Jim Rose was a big fan and a friend of Tim Moreland kind of patterned his style after Tim Moreland. I do want to mention this, that Grant Segrin, we mentioned the Grant Segrin transfer to Oklahoma. Matt Rule had mentioned that the redshirt freshman from Oakland, Craig, I think he played for Oakland Craig in high school, had a good chance to be a very good player at Nebraska. I bet he got some decent money from Oklahoma State. They did not have a good year under Mike Gundy last year, 3-9. But he also had an offer from Wisconsin. So, and if you don't think illegal recruiting happens, it does.
Yeah.
I'm sure he got a call from a school. Maybe it wasn't either of these two schools that said, you know what, we can pay you. Come here. And that's happening a lot in college football. But I'm sure some of it had to do with the fact that Nebraska got Elijah Pritchett from Alabama. They got Rocco Spindler from Notre Dame out of the portal. They have their starting 5 set as far as the offensive line is concerned. I think Gunnar Gatula is one of those tackles. I think you've got Pritchett and Spindler. That makes 3. You've got Henry Latofsky, who's the other guard there, and then Justin Evans at center. And then, as we mentioned, Teddy Prohaska and Turner Corcoran. I can see why somebody might leave.
Yeah, and here we go. Oh, it's not Nebraska's not going to Austin.
All right. Oh, by the way, Nate Rohr will tell us where they are going in about 15, 20 minutes.
And hey, it's breaking news. Not that you and I, either one of us, follow NASCAR. I used to. I don't anymore. Just whatever. I'm a dirt car guy, specifically sprint cars. But down at Kansas Speedway, Kyle Larson won today, and joining Kyle Larson in the victory celebration up on the stage, Nebraska head coach Matt Rule.
Really?
Yeah. I'm watching the video of it right now.
I know they were Matt Rule was with Dylan Raiola and Emmett as well. Emmett Johnson was there last weekend, I believe, or maybe it was 2 weekends ago, a WWE event in Omaha.
Yep.
So Matt Rule gets around. Played golf, not with Matt Rule, but he was in the same tournament last weekend. He and Fred Hoiberg both were in that tournament.
Nice.
Hoiberg's a really good stick. I don't think Matt Rule is.
Hey, Matt Rule can hit a single shot when it counts. That's what I know.
That's right.
So does his team.
Between the goalposts.
Yep, between the goalposts.
If it didn't matter, I don't think he would. And you're kind of like that. If it doesn't matter, you're probably not going to make it.
Yeah, I could go for, I don't know. You and I played in a tournament one time out in Alma, and
we were a pretty good team.
We were a pretty good team, and we had just a weird thing happened to us in the Saturday of the Calcutta. So first round of the Calcutta tournament with the 2-man, and it just lit a fire under my butt, and I was pretty irritated, and ultimately it was probably one of the better rounds of golf I played the next day. But
we won some money one year in Alma. We were pretty good.
It was all legal money.
Hey, they know those things go on. Every club has them in small town, wherever. Seth Straka won today's tournament event at 16 under par. Justin Thomas second. Shane Lowry third. I think they were in Philadelphia this weekend. Let's get to break and come back with more. We've got Nate Rohr a little bit later on, but in the meantime, Evan McLean talking about baseball and football coming up. Mike Melby, Tom Stevens, more on the way.
This Mother's Day.
What are they?
Yeah, it's been an up and down year, right? Like just when you think maybe it's done and they're cooked, they win some that they shouldn't, and then when they're going to get on a roll, they drop some games, and sort of that kind of a vibe this weekend where they look pretty good Friday, Saturday, winning close games both times, and the sticks just went quiet. And the game today turned in the 8th when they weren't able to field 3 consecutive bunts. You go single, error, single on a safety squeeze that gives Michigan the go-ahead run. But really it was just the lack of offense. I mean, they made Michigan's Saturday and Sunday starters who were unassured of even getting starts this weekend look pretty darn good. It was a lot of quick outs, and today it was a lot more kind of lazy fly balls and couldn't come through with that clutch hit when it was needed. And so kind of disappointing in the sense that the defense played, for the most part, other than the bunt coverage in the 8th, pretty well. And the pitching was good. I mean, you had Jackson Brockett give you 5 1/3, his longest start of the season. Drew Christo looked pretty good, and they just couldn't support that effort to finish off the sweep. So I think you have to put it in context. I mean, Ty Stone is out after he took a pitch on the wrist yesterday. Max Butenbach's been out all weekend with illness. So you're without 2 of your top run producers, and you still found a way to win the series. So, you go to Purdue next week, if you can get healthy and get ready to roll, and find a way to support the pitching enough. It looks like right now it's the arms that are sort of coming together for Nebraska if it can get enough run support.
Yeah, it finally figures they figured something out. I mean, it took them all year just to get to 500. They finally got over 500 yesterday, and it felt like it would have been easy for this team to quit this year, but they haven't. You could say that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the last 3 weekends, you lose Friday night and you come back and you win Saturday and Sunday, even though you don't necessarily feel like you have starters that are going to go deep into the game. And so they find a way to do that. Some of the midweeks that they've lost have been frustrating, and you kind of get to a point where you're just like, okay, we had the injury to Mason McConaughey, and the offense just hasn't come together. Maybe it's not the year, and they still just kind of find a way. I think that's been maybe the biggest trait, or the best trait of this team, has been its ability to fight and respond and work through some things. And now they put themselves in a position after a pretty rough start to play in the Big Ten tournament in Omaha. I know it's not preseason, being a preseason ranked team and some of the expectations that they had, but I think given the injuries and some of the inconsistencies, this thing could have gone off the rails a lot worse than it did, and everything's still in front of it. I mean, you go to Purdue and you win a series, and you go to Omaha, like, who knows what can happen with a group that's pretty experienced in terms of getting to the postseason. So we'll see what happens. But certainly it has been a team that through a lot of frustrating moments has kind of continued to fight, and now here they are battling to finish with a winning season.
One of the teams in that same kind of complex that didn't have any struggles this year, set all kinds of records, the softball team, still not announced. I thought they would play LSU. LSU was just announced as the 10 seed, and it is not Nebraska that they will face. So we continue the wait here. While we do, let's talk a little bit about Nebraska football. They lose an offensive lineman that would have been a key piece from the depth standpoint in Grant Seagram. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that was an interesting move in the sense that, like, when that happened initially, I think there was thought that, well, maybe this is a move related to the possible 105-man limit where he wanted to guarantee himself playing time elsewhere. And I think what it ended up becoming was a reminder that even somebody who hasn't played extensively, if you're in the right position or playing the right position, like Grant Seagram is on the offensive line as a tackle, like, you're going to find suitors out there. And you look at some of the offers that he reported, some big Power 5 schools, ends up committing to Oklahoma State. And again, this is someone who's played a little bit in a reserve role, but to get the offers that he does, I mean, just shows you the market for offensive linemen. So I suppose the positive spin would be, hey, I mean, one of Nebraska's reserve linemen was in demand on the portal market. And so maybe how much more does that say about what this starting five can look like, or maybe even kind of like a 6, 7, 8-man rotation, depending on how things come together. So good for Grant Segrin. I'm guessing he probably made a little bit more money in the portal the way that it turned out. But I think it also is a reflection of the depth that Nebraska's offensive line has this year as maybe one of the anchors, certainly of the offense, and one of the anchors of the team as well.
On the selection show, they were going up, not down, and LSU will host number 4 Southeast Louisiana. And in the other matchup in Baton Rouge, UConn will take on the University of Nebraska.
Wow. That's
so
a
Nebraska's
good that
the 2
sounds like
seed.
a good matchup.
Yeah, they're the
That's
2
nice.
seed against UConn on Friday, and then more than likely LSU on Saturday.
All right. Our own Nate Rohr will be there. And of course, he'll be with us probably within the next 10 minutes or so to talk about it. He's at the selection show with the softball team as we speak. The USA Today ranked the top football coaches this week. No surprise, Kirby Smart, number 1, Ryan Day, number 2, Dabo Sweeney, maybe a little high at 3. And Matt Rule comes in at 18th. Does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, I'd have to take a look at that list, but I think, his track record in college would play a factor in that. Obviously building up Temple and Baylor from programs that really struggled into winners. He hasn't had that breakout year at Nebraska yet. Maybe if his pattern follows, that'll be this fall. I would put Matt Rule prominent on a list like that, though, just because of where college athletics is going now. I mean, it's not 10 or 15 years ago when you wanted sort of an expert X's and O's play caller type. Like, you want somebody who's truly equipped as a CEO, somebody who can talk with donors, somebody who's able to be honest with players who now have the freedom to move around wherever they want, who can connect with fans, who is willing to think big picture and to go about things maybe in ways that are different than they were 10 years ago. I think all of those things are Matt Rule's strengths, and to have him leading Nebraska and navigating this time when you are moving into a revenue sharing era where they opened a new facility, where you have more resources than ever. Like, I think having the qualities that Matt Rule does puts Nebraska in an advantageous position. Obviously, it has to translate onto the field, but just the work that they've done in the portal and just some of the ways that they've, I think, adjusted to the times, tried to maybe even peek around the corner a little bit and anticipate some of these changes. That's worth its weight in gold when you're talking about a head coach in college athletics right now. And
it does feel like you need a CEO now more than ever, right? More so than even a football coach in this day and age.
Oh, for sure. And it's funny because, like, his tenure with the Carolina Panthers failed, and their owner in the wake of that firing said, hey, we want to go away from a CEO to sort of a play caller. In the NFL, you do see a lot of the sort of schematic gurus as head coaches, but in college, especially with the way that it's going out, you totally need someone who can think and operate from a big picture standpoint, which is why they went out and they hired coordinators to be experts in their area, offense, defense, special teams, to where Matt Rule can obviously jump in and coach and do what he needs to do, but having all of those other coaches from an on-field capacity frees him up to do all of the other things now that are required of a head coach.
Well, and schematic gurus, Dana Holgerson, hello. Yeah, Mike Eckler, sure. Hello.
Yeah, those are probably the most impressive hires.
Yeah.
What about Curt Cignetti is 13th on this list? Do you buy him for the long haul?
That's a really interesting one. I mean, he you look at his background, he was a recruiting coordinator with some great programs, learned under Nick Saban, finally got his chance with a major program. Like, I probably wouldn't put him that high, if only because the track record as a head coach isn't there. You like the pedigree. What he did at the lower levels of college football is impressive. And then he did it in the 1 year at Indiana when no one saw him coming. Like, that's going to be one of the really interesting stories is there staying power with Indiana, or is it sort of an example of the portal giveth and taketh away? And because of the volatile nature of roster turnover, there's always going to be somebody who comes out of nowhere, and maybe next year it's somebody else. I probably wouldn't put him that high. I'd put him honestly right around Matt Rule's range, maybe. Obviously, the one season he's had has been really a standout one, but a really interesting case study for maybe the sustainability in this new era.
There you go.
Evan Bland joining us on the Summit Lawns Talk and Text line. Evan, before we let you go, I want to ask you about Leo Curtis, the new high school recruit that we got that has been in Boston at an academy. He brings what we always thought Fred would get is, guys that have got some length that can shoot, etc. The one interesting thing is I heard a gentleman that we used to work with, Tom and I, went through Fred Hoiberg's tenure here at Nebraska, and he was talking about high school recruits. Bryce McGowan's is kind of off the list here because he only played 1 year. This is more about development at Nebraska. But is Sam Hoiberg the best high school recruit that Fred has had since he's been here? And is Leo Curtis maybe finally going to be that guy, because he's more than likely going to redshirt, that becomes a developed high school recruit for Fred?
Well, I mean, time will tell with Curtis. Like, Nebraska's been in this situation a lot, even recently, where they've had guys redshirt and then they leave after a year for opportunity or money elsewhere. So, I mean, there's so many variables with that. But as far as Sam, yeah, I would say that's probably true. I mean, he's somebody who sort of came in as that walk-on coach's son. You think, okay, maybe he can be sort of a culture guy, and he has been that. But he's also been really solid. I mean, you look at some of the plus minus numbers from when he's on the floor. Like, he's a guy who makes the unselfish play. Sometimes it shows up in the stat sheet with his shooting and whatnot. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily. But yeah, I mean, he's brought a lot just in terms of the intangible stuff too. And I think he has gotten better at Nebraska. So it's hard, one, to keep a guy for 3 or 4 years in your program right now. And then if you do, I mean, like you said, you gotta develop them, and they have to find a way to get better. I mean, they've done that with some transfers. I mean, Delano Banton was a good example of that. Bryce Williams, his career at Nebraska was a good example. I mean, he wasn't nearly the player that he became. So there are examples that you point to, but I think it's just a reminder that it's hard now to build your program on high school classes. And I think gone are the days when you can just count on bringing in a bunch of prep signees and just hope that they grow together for 3 or 4 years. Like, it's hard to do that. So I think they would hope that Curtis would be one of those guys. And, your best examples are going to be guys that you get out of high school at a relative bargain, and then you can keep them around because they like your program and they like your situation. So we'll see if that plays out that way. But in terms of talent, I mean, he's right up there with some of the best that they've signed.
I saw Rick Pitino say that he'd rather have a 21-year-old, 22-year-old transfer than have a 5-star freshman. I think that's just the way it's headed. That coaches just don't have the patience. I think it's about time, Evan, where we just go with 5 years. Go 5 years, nobody redshirts, and then you get that year to get a little playing
with
time.
Leo Curtis is 20 or 21 already, though.
Yeah. So that might help.
Prep school. So.
Yeah, he's been around the block. Iceland kid. Hey, we appreciate the time. Good stuff.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
thanks, Evan.
Talk to you soon. Thank you, Evan Bland of the Omaha World Herald. Got to get the break a little bit early because Nebraska's got to be announced at some point. I assume they're in the tournament.
Yeah, no, that's why I told you. They play UConn on Friday.
UConn, okay.
In the LSU
that's right.
bracket.
That's right.
Yep.
They do play UConn on Friday. In what region?
I don't know. They're playing LSU. They're not going. We can't hear what they're saying on the TV, and they're not putting up what region they're in. But Nebraska's the 2 seed in the LSU regional.
That's right, the LSU regional. Let's get to break, and then we'll talk to Nate Rohr about little Husker softball. Talk a little bit about their opponent, UConn, coming up.
You're listening to Husker Rewind.
Welcome back. My name is Mike Melby. That is Tom Stevens. This is Husker Rewind on KLIN. And joining us on the Summit Lawns Talk and Text Line, the voice of the Nebraska softball team, Mr. Nate Rohr. Nate, how do you feel about Baton Rouge?
Hey, I'm excited to see the Huskers going back, no question about it. Baton Rouge was the place that Nebraska played in a regional in 2015, so an electric environment. But LSU's a good team. They're going to be a challenging team to try and get through, but they're also not a team that just knocks your doors off the minute you see them. So it'll be a nice competitive regional. UConn has had a nice year out of the Big East. They're Nebraska's first opponent. I feel pretty good about Nebraska's draw.
So let me ask you this really quick. I know how good you are at prep work. So you've already done like 3/4 of the research you need to for UConn. Like, can you just give us a bullet point by bullet point breakdown?
I'm not quite there yet.
It's been 7 minutes, Nate. Come on.
I know. I'm
What's taking so long?
Yeah, I'm entertaining my son. I keep handing him markers to draw while we watch the rest of the tournament field. But, you have to respect the UConn team. They've got a surprisingly strong RPI for a Big East team at 52nd in the country. That really catches my eye because the Big East, from an RPI standpoint, is pretty weak. And yet they've been able to put together a good enough schedule, be competitive enough against that schedule to where they're not in that 7,500 range. I mean, Creighton, for instance, is way down there, and Creighton took UConn to the if necessary game.
So
Creighton was 126, for example.
Nebraska fell a little short to UCLA. How does an LSU, for example, compare to a UCLA in your mind?
I think in the same neighborhood, I would say maybe a half step behind UCLA. That would be my best guess. I mean, UCLA had a decent year, or LSU, excuse me, had a decent year this year. They ended up ninth, believe it or not, in the Southeastern Conference, and yet they were fifth in the RPI. So, I mean, LSU has had a good year, but not a year that just overwhelms you. But I will say, I mean, look, Tiger Park and Baton Rouge, we know all about LSU baseball fans, but their softball fans are plenty rabid too. The atmosphere is terrific around LSU athletics. So it's going to be a fun atmosphere, no question about it, in Baton Rouge.
KLIN Sports Director Nate Rohr, of course, part of Jack and Friends as well, and the voice of Nebraska softball. Got to mention Jordy Ball, Player of the Year in the conference, Pitcher of the Year in the conference. She's been Pitcher of the Year a couple of other times when she was at Oklahoma. Are we going to look back? I mean, how are we going to look back at her career? Obviously, she's got another year to go, but already setting record after record. It feels like after 2 years, this is crazy what she's doing.
Yeah, and this year was a wholly unprecedented chapter for her when you think about it, because she got some at bats at Oklahoma, but she didn't hit on any consistent basis. She was effective when she did, but she just didn't do it often. And Nebraska's had her in the lineup every day. She's been a part of the lineup on a consistent basis, and she's gone out and hit at an All-American level. I mean, Jordy Ball, the hitter, not even thinking about what she's doing from a pitching standpoint, Jordy Ball, the hitter, is an All-American player, and then Jordy Ball, the pitcher, is also an All-American player, and the two together are, I think, one of the unprecedented forces in all of college softball.
Doesn't it baffle you a little bit that Oklahoma didn't try to play? I know they're really good. They don't need to, but she's such a good hitter that they didn't even try to play her in that position very often. I guess you just don't want to risk the injury.
Yeah, I think their feeling was, maybe she would be their fifth best hitter, and is that really worth injuring our best pitcher? So, every school has its own calculations and how the risk and reward calculate, but I think Oklahoma just didn't see the reward commensurate with the risk of sending their pitcher up there and having her hit when they had a lot of good options around her.
Right.
But that said, I think Jordy's really relished the opportunity to show that part of her game, the offensive part, her ability to hit, her ability to compartmentalize what she does in the circle against what she does at the plate. I think that continued to sharpen her interest and her excitement about going out there and playing.
Nate Rohr joining us on the Summit Lawns Talk and text line. Nate, I want to ask you this. You saw the entire selection show. You saw the celebrations. I did not see anybody from Nebraska jump up on the table in flip-flops and start dancing. Did it happen off camera?
No, nothing. I mean, look, there was some happiness. There was some excitement. There was an expectation, obviously, that Nebraska was going to be in regionals, but I think we all kind of knew they were going to be a number 2 seed. But the feeling was that, we're in, we're going to be a part of this thing, and now let's go out and see what we can do. But there wasn't, as much as you want that sort of cathartic relief and excitement and enthusiasm, the fact of the matter is this team knows that it's good enough to be a regional team. They knew it when they walked into the building today. They knew it really when they walked into the building in mid-January for the first practice. So it wasn't like this caught them off guard, leading to a giant, if this team had been selected to host a regional, we might have seen something like that. But I don't know that that just being selected to the field really wowed this team like that.
Well, we love listening to you, and we can't wait for more softball. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, it's May is always exciting, and with the possibilities for this team, I think we are just beginning a very fun ride for Nebraska softball over the next few weeks.
All right, Nate, we appreciate the time.
Thanks, Nate.
Hey, thanks so much, gentlemen.
All right.
Take care.
We'll talk to him again when Nebraska wins the national title or gets to the College World Series.
They're in the CWS.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, no.
That's automatic.
Or no, never mind. They're in the tournament.
They're in the tournament, and I think they like their chances being in that region and being in the Baton Rouge. I don't think LSU is UCLA. Maybe they are. It's going to be tough to win that regional. Obviously, it's probably going to be very tough just to beat the UConn, one game at a time. Right? That's kind of how the coaches say it. I don't know if you saw this, but former Nebraska defensive back Joshua Kalu is part of a new dating show.
Yeah.
It's called Somebody's Son. It debuted on April 12th with the finale running on June 28th. The show follows 3 charming, single, successful men as they embark on a high-stakes search for true love.
You do that so well.
In the first episode, Kalu doesn't initially mention that he played in the NFL to his love interests. Their love interests there, and he's a model. He mentions that he dabbles in modeling. He's been in New York and Paris in the fashion weeks there. He mentioned that, but he didn't mention that he played at Nebraska or his NFL career. He did mention his Aunt Uma, who gave him some great advice. Know who loves you for who you are. That was her advice. It sounds like something my mom would say.
Well, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, that's, you and I talking to a microphone and once a week, and you've done it for 40 years. I've done it for 30. Mm-hmm. What am I at? 33. Doesn't make any difference. We're not any different really off the air. We've always been argumentative and grumpy, but luckily we were fortunate enough to find people that went, you know what, I could put up with that, I guess.
Do you remember the best advice your mom ever gave you?
Yeah, 3rd grade, had moved to DeSoto, Texas. 1974, Nebraska beat Texas in the Cotton Bowl 19-3. I came in as the new kid from Nebraska. Evidently, they take football pretty seriously in Texas, and I got beat up a lot. Mm-hmm. And my mom told me one day when I came home again with a bloody nose, one of these days, you're just going to have to get into a knockdown, drag-out fight.
She encouraged you to fight.
Yeah, and that will, as soon as you do, they'll leave you alone.
That wasn't from your dad.
No, that was from my mom. Yeah.
And so you did? You got in a fight because your mom told you to get in a fight?
Yeah. It was a knockdown, drag-out fight, and I was
that
not the one.
That sounds like something my dad
I
would
was
say.
not the one bleeding at the end of it. And I was
You
no
win.
longer, I no longer got beat up. So.
You won the fight, and it was all because your mom gave you great advice.
Yeah.
Go fight that guy.
Yeah.
Don't put up with that crap. My mom would not have said, go fight somebody. I don't believe.
Even if you were getting beat up on a daily basis?
She was like, turn the other cheek. Maybe you need to make them a friend.
The other cheek hurt as well, so I had to do something different.
I like your mom's advice better than my mom's advice, even though I love my mom dearly. One of my best friends ever. Probably my best friend ever. She was amazing. Both our moms have passed.
Yep.
And I miss my mom a lot. My dad would have said, go bloody his nose for sure. My dad, I remember my mom used to say every year, why didn't you get me anything for Mother's Day? And he would say, you're not my mom.
That's awesome.
Cold-blooded.
That's awesome.
How long
did he sleep in the extra bedroom or the couch after every Mother's Day?
I mean, he was a tough guy, ex-Marine. My dad was the toughest guy I've ever met. And mom was more like Mother Teresa. But mom ruled that house. She did. Dad thought he did, but mom really did. So she was great. I miss her. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. You
absolutely
deserve a great day. You know this, Nebraska got a commit from a 16-year-old. I've talked about this. Talked about it in the first hour with Connor. And you mentioned this last week, that he was hitting social media pretty hard, trying to get a recruiting class going for 2027. He may do it. He's put a lot of stuff on social media. Of course, the thing that he did that turned off Illinois fans is he put on the Illinois hat for a few seconds, then took it off. I don't really think it's a huge deal. The hat thing has been going on for years and years and years. Maybe he left it on a little too long and then he threw it off and they put on the Nebraska hat. Emmitt Smith was the first one that I remember doing that, famously put on a Nebraska hat in the late 80s. He played like 1987 to 89 or 90 for Florida. But we all thought he was going to, there was a good chance. I mean, a lot of people were predicting that he was going to Nebraska. I always wondered, would Osborne have won a couple more national titles in the late 80s with Emmitt Smith? I mean,
the defense was the problem.
Yeah.
Though.
And I mean, Nebraska didn't get that fixed till 92, 93.
Yeah. I mean, if the timing is right with what you're saying, Steve Taylor would have been the quarterback. So,
yeah. My point to this really was, though, it's a 16-year-old, Trey Taylor. I'm glad that he's trying to put together a big class for 2027, but it's hard to get too excited about a 16-year-old. I mean, he may not even end up at Nebraska. I hope he does. I think it would be great if he did, because Dylan Raiola didn't get a chance to peer recruit, and now Trey Taylor is getting that chance. And if he brings a bunch of 5-star stud wide receivers and just players in general to Nebraska, I'm all good with it.
Well, absolutely. I'm going to take a quick peek here because I want to know. So let's go by position here. 1989 Nebraska football roster. So 87, 88, 89 is Emmitt
they lost
Smith.
some close games to Oklahoma.
Yeah, Emmitt
and
Smith.
Oklahoma won it, in 89 or 88, something like that.
Yeah, so Emmitt was at Florida, 87, 88, 89. Nebraska's quarterback that year, Mickey Joseph, was a sophomore, as was Mike Grant. I think those two kind of split duty. No, that was the year Jerry Godowski. Actually.
Broderick was probably our best defensive player.
Yeah, he was.
Era.
Yeah, he was.
But you're right. They probably didn't have enough on the defensive. That was before they had switched to the 4-3. They were still running a 5-2. And in fact, in the early 90s, I don't think they switched until 92 or 93 to the 4-3.
Okay, so Nebraska's featured running back in Emmitt Smith's last year was Ken Clark. And Ken Clark was a heck of a football player, but if you tell me that we've got Emmitt Smith instead of Ken Clark for 3 years, I'll take that.
Emmitt Smith's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. Leotis Flowers, Scotty Baldwin was a sophomore at that point. Terry Rogers was also on that team.
Terry
as a
Rogers
high back.
could have been really good had he not gotten hurt.
Yeah,
but he was
I
also
agree.
small.
Five,
It was really
they had him listed at 5'7", 170. So let me translate that from football to my basketball stats. If I'm 5'11" in the 10th grade, he was probably 5'5" and a half and 145 pounds.
Yeah, I just think Emmitt Smith. What we talk about peer recruiting.
Yeah,
I'm guessing there's a few guys he could have brought to Nebraska from Florida.
Yeah,
because Nebraska didn't get Tommy Frazier until '92, something like that.
Yeah,
from Bradenton, and then everything changed. Everything changed.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, he was pretty
60-3.
I think that peer recruiting, man, there's something to that. You get one big stud, and maybe Trey Taylor is that. A lot of people think he's going to a 5-star soon.
Well,
he's 16.
He got a hold of a good buddy of his who's the number 1 wide receiver recruit in the country, and I believe the number 1 overall recruit in the country in 2027. And he's already committed to Ohio State. He said, hey, how about this duo in Lincoln instead?
Again, he probably won't end up here because he's 16. But if he does, maybe he brings some hosses with him, some big-time studs is what Nebraska would need. Could you imagine Nebraska having the number 1 recruiting class in the country? That used to happen occasionally. Top 5 anyway, under Tom Osborne. That'd be great to happen again. We're out. We're going to come back, though, next Sunday, 5 to 7, Husker Rewind. Mike, we'll see you later.
See ya.